Greetings, YouTubers. How's it going out there in YouTube land? Hopefully you're having a great day or night. Well, it begins. This is a 2008 Ford Fusion 2.3. The transmission, it's got some issues, so I decided to go ahead and take it out. And to get this transmission out, we basically got to take out the subframe underneath. So this video is going to be pretty much dedicated to how I'm going to take the subframe out. But the first thing we got to do, I've got the vehicle up on ramps. We're going to put some blocks. We're basically going to jack the front of it up, take the wheels off, and put the wheels underneath the frame or the body on both sides, and put some wood so we can have the whole front end kind of hanging up in the air. So none of this stuff, the ramps or jacks, will be in our way, and we should be able to get this subframe off. Now, this is a pretty involved job. The only thing I've got to really worry about is these ball joints. They're in there pretty good, so we're going to see what we can do to get those out, and maybe some of the things I do will help you out. And I guess my goal here is just to go ahead and get the transmission out and hopefully either rebuild it or go and pick up another one. But where I live, they want $800 for a transmission, which is just ridiculous. I've rebuilt transmissions before, so in a nutshell, it might be really interesting just to take this transmission out, rebuild it, fix what's wrong with it, and just put it back together. And I know there's a lot of these Ford Fusion that have transmission issues. Some of these vehicles go to 200,000 miles without no problems. Some don't even make it to 100,000. But let me go ahead and start working on this and get the cradle off, see if we can get it out, and go from there. Alright, so we got our wheels off. We got the vehicle kind of supported up in the air, and you can see what I do. I take the wheels completely off. Put a big block of wood there. Same thing on that side, up under the frame, if you will. And this will keep the vehicle nice and secure. And we're basically ready to go ahead and start taking this thing apart. Now, I know when you're taking the transmissions out and the subframe, especially on a lot of the Tauruses, they make a tool that you can put across the top of the vehicle that supports this engine. So far, I don't think I'm going to need that, because if you look right here on the transmission mount, I went ahead and took some of this air cleaner stuff out of the way. I wanted to verify that we have a motor mount on this end and on that end, like we typically do on these 4 cylinders. And we do have a motor mount right here on the transmission that is connected to the frame. And we have one on this side also. So I'm not going to need a support hoist or anything right now. So getting the subframe off should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so having said all that, the first thing we need to do under here, if yours has this, we got to take this underbody shield off. It is held on by 10mm bolts. Pretty easy to take off. You can see it's a pretty big plastic. It bolts up under the subframe, goes clear around there, and this protects the engine and transmission. And once you pull this out of here, I'll give you a quick look at it real quick. And here's basically what it looks like. So we'll take this and put this off to the side. Here are the 10mm bolts. I put everything in little baggies so we can find them later. Okay, the next thing we've got to do is go ahead and take off the fancy name for a motor mount. This one here is a 15mm bolt. There it is. Now what I'm going to do, since I'm under here, I'm going to go ahead and take this whole bracket off, because it's really easy to access, because I am eventually going to pull the transmission out. And now you can see how the engine kind of rocks back and forth. So if you have any vibration in your engine, definitely check this mount. Make sure it's secure. And there is that. And I'm going to go one step more. I'm going to go ahead and take off this little bracket right here, just to get it out of the way. Because since I'm here, I might as well go ahead and do it. And those, of course, are going to be probably an 18mm socket. Yep. Because this will actually give me room to get up in here and take that axle out if I have to. Pretty long bolt, so there is that one. One more to go. And there we go. And like I said, you don't have to do this, but why not? And look at all the room we got here. We can get up in here and pull this axle out, which eventually we'll have to anyway later. So we'll put all this off to the side. All right, so we come over to the passenger side, or you can go to the driver's side, but just come over to the passenger side. We got to take out this inner fender. All these little guys here, these like little clips, you got to pop out. Pretty easy to pop out. And on the bottom down here, you have some bolts, little tiny screws that you have to take out. And let's see if I got the last one here out. There it is, just a little guy. And this inner fender will come out, and we'll put this off to the side like that. The reason we have to take that off is because there is one of the bolts that we have to take out of the front of the frame. So that's why we have to go and do all that. Now we got to go ahead and take this piece of plastic here out, this splash guard. By the way, those little bolts are 7mm that hold the bottom of the guard here on the splash guard underneath there. There's little tiny bolts, and there's some on the other side too. Alright, now for this splash guard, we got to take these little clips here out. There are 5 of them, and there's one hidden right back there. And I just use needle nose and just basically pull these off like this, and this should take it, get it off, get it out of your way. Now we just pull this out like this. Try not to lose any of your clips, but you'll need these when you put this back on. Just makes life a little bit easier. And we'll pull this out of the way here. We got one hidden clip that is down there. I think you can see it right about there that we got to take out. Let me get that real quick. Okay, there we go. We got it. Get it out of the way. There it is. Kind of hard to get the lighting just right under here. But that is out. And we'll put this off to the side. And there it is. And now we have all this room under here on this side to get into bolts and so forth when we go to pull that subframe out. And also if you ever have to change a crank sensor, there it is, by the way. Pretty easy to get to once you take the plastic off. Alright, so now we got to go to the other side. Alright, so we got our 3 bolts out there on the front of this fascia on the bottom part that actually is inside this fender well, this splash guard. So this is ready to come off. So what we got to do is grab it here, and remember there's clips all the way around. Someone's worked on this before, so some of the clips are missing and broken. So we'll go ahead and get this out of the way. Pull this back like this. I'll put the camera down because there was one hidden right there. That one right there kind of catching it. So now we can pull this fender out, plastic piece out. Let me hold the camera a little bit better for you guys. There we go. So this is out. Put that off to the side. Pretty big piece of plastic there. And now we can go ahead and take out our other piece here. This guy right here with all these clips. And there's a look at that. And that is all out, and now as you can see we have access to a lot of things here that we need to disconnect from the subframe before we drop it down. And most importantly this is where the big bolt is on the subframe on the front that we have to disconnect. Now you don't have to take this piece here off. You can if you want, but there's really nothing up under there that you really need to get into or unhook that I can see, but I could be wrong, but we'll come back later if there is. But if you have to take that off, you only have 4 more screws to take off and it'll be completely out. So, so far it hasn't been too bad. Okay, now on the driver's side, there are 2 10mm bolts we have to take out. I've loosened this one up already and put it back in the bracket. And we have to take that one out. We just kind of leave that there for now. And we got one more. And the second one is right there. Now the axle is right here. I think you kind of see it. I already got this loosened up pretty good back there. So now all I got to do is put my hand back there and go ahead and pull this out of here like this. Kind of hard to get in there. but it's a little tight. This is a 10mm bolt that you have to take out. And once you take this out, you can see it there. You can either screw it back in the frame or put it off to the side, but I'll just screw it back in the frame. And as you can see, our power steering line is now loose from the frame, which is really good. Okay, now we got those two bolts out. There's one more, and it's right up front here. We have to go up under the vehicle, and it's a 10mm bolt also. And I think you can kind of see it there. You can get a socket in here and get this, and I'll just go ahead and take it the rest of the way out. I've already loosened it, trying to make this video a little faster for you guys. And there is the bolt. And now our hose is completely free, so we are good there. And just put your bolt back in the frame, that way you'll know where it's at a little bit later. Now back over to the passenger side, we have one more bolt on this side we have to take off, and this is a 10mm. And this, we'll let this line come off, and I believe this is a power steering line. And now we got that off, loosen this up a little bit, and we can just simply let that kind of hang down. And take the bolt, put it back in the frame, because these bolts, some of them are a little bit different lengths than others. It'll just make your job a little bit easier. And now we've got that in. Okay, so the next thing we've got to do, we've got to take off these sway bar end links. Now, if any of you have ever worked on vehicles, you know what I'm going to say. These never come off. You'll just have to cut them off. And I've got a little cutting tool here. We're just going to cut it off. I did try to break it loose. I took this 14mm wrench, held that, put an Allen wrench in there in the center of this, and it just rounded off on the inside of that because it's rusted off. This is nothing new, so we're just going to cut this off and replace both of these anyway. You can get these free shipping online for about $15, so they're not that big of a deal to put in. So I'll go ahead and cut this one off. All right. Okay, there that is. It wasn't too bad. And there it is. That bolt is smoking hot. So it's a good thing we have cutting tools. So now we go ahead and do the other side. Well, on this side, I decided to go ahead and just try the old 14mm wrench and a 5mm Allen. And would you know, it's actually coming off. So I guess sometimes you get lucky and you just have to play around and see what works. But it's actually coming off, which is fine by me. So we're going to finish taking this off. Well, you see, I just about got it off. And the Allen wrench kind of twisted off. You can see all the rust. So I guess we'll be cutting this side off. Well, I had high hopes anyway. Okay, back to the grinding wheel. I think that was a song in the 70s, wasn't it? Grinding wheel. Yeah. Grinding wheel. All right, here we go. Alright, so there we are. That's off. It will be off here in a second. Pop it out. There we go. And actually, this wouldn't be that bad of a job if those hadn't broken. If I could have just taken them off. This is probably the hardest part of the whole job so far, getting these things off. Alright, go ahead. Alright, so the sway bar end is free, and now we can move on to the next step. Like I said, wasn't for cutting these off. This is probably the hardest thing to do. Everything else is just taking bolts loose. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and bolt our rack and pinion. These are 15mm bolts that are in there. And you can get a ratchet in here. And there's not much room, but you can still get in here and get this bolt. And I've already broken it loose and got it partially out for you. And you can see, there it is. We'll just put it off the side. Now there's a second one, but it's on the back side here. And it's right about there. I think you can see where my finger is. Right about here. Kind of dark, but there's a bolt right there. Another one we have to take out. You can break it loose down here if you have a lot of room for me, but I find it's a lot easier to just go up on top like this. And we're on top here. Let me go up here. I've got a really long extension, and everybody has extensions, right? And I've simply just got it right down there on that bolt. And there's the bolt, and simply just break it loose this way, and it'll come right out. So that's one way you can get that, and I prefer this probably because there's not a lot of room down there to break that bolt loose on the back, but this makes it just so much easier. So we'll go ahead and take this one out. Okay, so we're back under there. Underneath of it, we're going to pull the socket off, and there it is. And the light is a little challenging down here to get the lighting just right. So what I'll do is stick my hand up in here and just pull the bolt out. It's not as bad as it looks. It's just me holding the camera. It's kind of hard. So there that is. We get that bolt out. And here are the two rack and pinion bolts that are on the driver's side that we've taken out. A lot of people don't know this. They think you have to drop the rack and pinion out with the subframe. You do not have to do that. Once we get the other two bolts out on the other side, then we'll just kind of let the rack and pinion stay in there, and eventually when we drop the subframe out, we'll wire up the rack and pinion and kind of hold that up in there. So that keeps us from worrying about an alignment later, because I know if you unhook the rack and pinion from the steering, then you have to go through a heck of a time getting it lined up. So this is really a lot better to do it this way. Okay, so now we're on the passenger side. Now on this side, we only have one bolt to take out, which is kind of nice. And if I zoom in, you can see it's right there. There's enough room down here to break it loose if you just kind of get up in the front right like this. You can stick a socket back up in there and get to it. I think you can even see the head sticking out just a little bit. If I shine the light just right, if the camera focus, there it is. There's the head of it right there, kind of sticking up. But since we've already got the sockets up here and the extension, you can simply just actually do it from up here. This is what I'm going to do. It'll be a lot easier. And you can see there's the bolt right there. So once we get that bolt out, the rack and pinion will be free. So what I did, I actually went down here and went under the frame and stuck my hand in there and put that socket on the bolt. Broke it loose a little bit first because I kept trying to break it loose with this long extension. It kind of flexed too much for me. I didn't want to break them. I didn't want to break any of the extensions, so I just went down and broke the bolt loose, got it turned a couple of times. Now we can go ahead and put our extension on it here and go ahead and take it the rest of the way out. Alright, I think you can kind of see that. It's kind of going there. So we'll go ahead and get this out. We won't have a whole lot more here to do, believe it or not. The ball joint's going to be a little bit of a job, but once we get past that, we're home free. Alright, it's all the way out. Let's see if I can pull this up out of here without losing anything. And you can see how long my extension is. About maybe 2.5 feet. It's pretty long. And there is the bolt. Let me see if I can get my hand back here. Go ahead and take it out rest of the way. Alright, there's that. And there is that bolt. You can see it's a pretty long bolt, so it takes a little patience getting these out. Alright, so there's the rack and pinion, and you can see it's loose. It's ready to come out. But of course, we're going to leave that in there. We're just going to tie it up with some wire. And I think you can even see on the driver's side, you can see how it's all loose and everything. So we're just about done here. Alright, let's go to the next step. Okay, now this is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but I decided to go ahead and do it anyway. I knocked my tie rod ends off because I wanted to check them and make sure there was no play in them. And also, this will give me plenty of room here to pivot this around when I get ready to work these lower ball joints and the bolts. When I get ready to take those off. But you don't have to do this, but it does make it a little bit easier here to move this around. And the same thing on the passenger side. Just take the bolt off the nut. Take a hammer, hit this a couple times. And it usually just pops right out. And that's it. Okay, now the next thing I recommend you do is go ahead and take a cloth and wrap it around the CV boot, and just take a bungee cord or something, or some tape, or even use a small block of wood, because there's been cases where this control arm will come up and hit that boot and tear it, cut a slice in it, and you'll have grease leaking out. And you don't want to have to go out and buy a couple axles just to replace the boot. So do that, and do the same thing to the passenger side, just to kind of help you out, just in case that happens. Okay, and here is the passenger side, and you can see we've got a rag there kind of wrapped around the boot. and a bungee cord to protect it. Okay, now we can go ahead and take these nuts off. These are 23 millimeter. This is what the socket has. Go ahead and take this back one off. This is the control arm. And by the way, I broke these with a cheetah bar, and you have to put some muscle into it when you break these loose. And there they are, so those are loose. Okay, now go ahead and put your nuts back on. Just put them on 2 or 3 turns and put a little oil on them. Kind of keep them loose, but don't put them on all the way. Okay, now I've got my jack under there, and if you look closely, right about there, I've got the jack on that bottom bolt, and I brought the whole thing up in the air about 5 or 6 inches. I got a lot of pressure on that bolt there, and what we're going to do, since we got all this pressure on that bolt pushing up on the lower ball joint, we're going to take a hammer and hit the side of that and see if we can work that ball joint out of that sleeve. If the sleeve comes out, no big deal. I'll just press it out with my press, but I think this should work, so let me give this a try. Sometimes I get lucky, and sometimes, well, you just got to hammer it until it slips out. And you can see the sleeve is coming out with the control arm. That's okay, but if it happens to you, if you have a press, you can just push it out on a press. It's a lot easier to work with. But you can see, that's one way to get that out. Alright, so we'll go ahead and take the bolt off, the nut, I should say. Should come out the rest of the way. And there you go. You see it's out right there. Okay, so we did all that. Well, we got one more to take off, but what you got to do is go ahead and put this nut back on this lower ball joint. A couple turns so we can lift this up again and put this jack on the other bolt so we can hit it and now push it through. Okay, I think you can see that there. I've got the jack on this other ball joint, which is the lower control arm. And we got a little pressure on it. The reason we put the nut back on the ball joint is so this whole thing doesn't pivot out and pull the axle out of the transmission or rip the boot. We want to keep this kind of together until we get this last bolt out. Let me go ahead and put a little more pressure on there for you guys. Make sure you can still see that there. Okay, I'll take my hammer, hit the side of it here until it pops loose. It may take a couple hits, but there we go. That's how you can take these off without using a ball joint remover if you don't have one. And you can see this is out. And now we just simply take the bolts out and go ahead and let this hang free. Okay, now just come back over here to the ball joint, the front of it here. Take this bolt out. See, I've got a lot of oil in here, so it's real slippery. The sleeve is like sliding in and out quite a bit. And we'll release the pressure. Now you can see why we put this cloth here, because sometimes that will come up there and hit that, and you can see it's all out and all that. So if you want, and you're a little nervous about damaging this axle, maybe pulling it out because it is a little tight, you can go ahead and take this out and take the nut off here and push this axle in, and this will let this even sway out more. And you know what, since I'm talking about it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. You don't have to do this, but it will make it a little bit easier to get in here and move things around. Okay, so we're here. This is going to be a 1 1/4, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use my electric impact gun. Now on some axles you might want to do this when the bolt is still on. Just simply flip it around and hit it a little bit. If you can get it back on, sometimes you can get these on and off sometimes, but this one here has got the little place where you bend in it. So the threads might be a little messed up. But the threads on this one is in quite a ways, and there's a little smaller end here, so I think I'll be okay here just hitting this a few times, knocking it out. There we go. That one had a little rust on it. So if you do mess up the end here a little bit, you can take a grinder and grind it down a little bit, sand it down if your nut won't go back on. But the threads on this is pretty far back. Sometimes what you got to do. And I'll go ahead and knock the rest of the way in with my broken extension. And it's all the way in. And lube it up. Get some grease in there. So we're good there. And if you want to take this axle out, it should come out. Okay, so we got to do one more thing. We got to take 15 socket, and we got to take this bottom control shock support off from the control arm. Oops. So there's a bracket that goes in the back that holds the nut on, and now we can just pull all this out, knock it out with the hammer, and it should come right out. And you can see how loose my hub is and everything. Since we got a lot of stuff here disconnected, it makes it a little bit easier to work around. Everything's nice and loose. Knock this out real quick. Bolt out. It should usually comes right out. Of course, I'll have to take a screwdriver and knock the rest of the way out. So if you do this job over a couple of days, it's not that bad. If you try to do it all in one day, you're going to get pretty tired pretty fast. So, you know, it's basically what you're able to do. So here is all this mess. And everything is disconnected, believe it or not, on this side. We only have 2 frame bolts to take out on this side. So what we got to do, we got to do the same thing to the other side, get all this loose, and we'll be ready to drop the frame. Now I'm not going to show you how to do that. You just saw me do all this, and you can see how I got everything kind of supported here with a bungee cord, and everything's kind of just hanging, and down there everything's disconnected. So I'll come back here in a minute after I do the other side, and we'll start dropping this frame. Okay, so we got the passenger side unhooked, and this frame, my friend, is ready to drop out. So let's get this out. Now, since I'm a one-man band job here, yes, I am all alone, have a couple of these on standby because we are going to set these under the rear of the frame. And just take your jacks and kind of set them like that, and you can see they're about 2 inches below the frame, the rear of the frame there, and when we take those bolts out in the back, that frame will kind of pivot down and rest on those jacks there. Then we can take the 2 front bolts out and drop it completely down, and this whole frame should slowly come out. Okay, so on the passenger side, we got to take this plate off. There are 2 15mm bolts back here, and I got one already out started, and there's one back here in the back. Get that out. Then we got to take this big one off here, and I have a 22mm socket for that, but it seems like that one there could be just slightly smaller. My socket is a little loose on the ratchet. But anyway, we'll go ahead and get that out real quick here. Get my impact tool here set up. Alright, so we'll set this off to the side, bracket. And now we gotta go to the other side. And now we're back on the driver's side. We'll take these 2 off real quick. And now we'll take the big one off. Now when you take the big one off, the frame might come down a little bit, but don't worry, that's what the jack stands are for. And you can see it's moving. Beautiful, that's exactly what we want. And now up front, we got one here we got to take out. And now we've got to go to the opposite side and take the last one out, and the frame should start to fall out. And now we'll take our last bolt out, and you'll probably just have to watch it on camera as this frame kind of falls down as I take the last bolt out. I'll take it out slowly. And it's just about out. I'm going to pry the frame down slowly. There it goes, and you can see on the back, the jacks back there caught it, which is nice. And I got to finish taking out this bolt up front. Whatever you do, don't be under the frame. Kind of set it off the side, and I'm going to get a secondary jack, and I'm going to support the front of the frame with it. And there it is. And we'll go ahead and take this bolt out. And out comes our frame. Slowly. And as you can see, we got that jack there holding the frame up, and we got the two in the back. And now all I gotta do is go ahead and lower those jacks and lower the frame. So let me set the camera up here, and maybe you can kind of see me do this slowly. Right, there's that side. Just take your time at it. And now we got to get the back jack, which is right there. Lower it. My garage is really small, so it's really hard for me to move around a lot. And you can see all of that is loose, and the frame is ready to be dropped out. So I'm going to look around and verify we don't have any of the bolts hung up or anything. So at this point, I don't see anything in the way, and now we're just going to go ahead and take our jacks out. Pull that one out. This one next. And we got one more jack in the back. Which is right here. Take this one out. And out is our frame. Alright, so that wasn't too bad. Let me go ahead and we'll drag it out here. Look at it. Let me get everything kind of cleaned up here now, and we'll slide it out where you can really see it. Alright, there it is. It's out. There is the subframe. It wasn't too bad. Now, when you go to put this back in, if you can get somebody to help you, that would be great, but you can still put it back in by using those jacks. Just gently push it up and rock it and push it back up under the vehicle. But if you have to do your ball joints now, you have to unbolt it from here. The frame, some of these vehicles, you have to lower the back frame down anyway to even get some of these bolts out. But this is a great time to go ahead and check everything and check your ball joints and all that. Let's take it outside and look at it before we end the video here. I have a dog next door that might start barking, my neighbor's dog, but we'll do the best we can to keep him shut up. Give you one final nice look at it here before we wrap the video up. Okay, so here's a look at it. Now I've got it upside down. This would be looking at it from the bottom. And you can see here are the ball joints. And if you need to pull these sleeves off, you can take them off here and bolt it, put it in a press or whatever. But my ball joints are okay. So Everything here seems to be really good. Even on this side, nice and tight. No problems. The boots are okay. This is why I took it off this way. I didn't want to damage the boot. And there are the 4 cradle bolts. 2 there. 1 there. And 1 there. So it wasn't too bad of a job. Let's flip it over real quick. And of course there is the top of it. 2 big bolts there that hold it in. And the 2 in the back. But this frame is in really good shape. So that's it for now. I guess we'll just put this off to the side. And like I said, my main goal was to go ahead and get the transmission out. Let's look underneath the vehicle real quick. Show you all the room we got now. Oh, and by the way, this thing weighs about 60 to 80 pounds. I carried it outside. It's pretty heavy, but it's manageable. Manageable, that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, there's a look underneath of it. Boy, what? Lots of room under here now without that frame. And there is the rack and pinion. I need to wire this up. It's really light. It's not heavy at all. But there that is. There are the ball joints, the knuckles that go into the bottom of the hub and everything. And there's that side. It's all off. And I guess this is a wrap. So my next video later, if you want to see it, I may do a video on it. I'm going to be pulling this transmission out. If you want to see that, let me know in the comment section below. But other than that, it wasn't too bad to do for a one-man job anyway. That is it. That is how I took out a subframe on a 2008 Ford Fusion. And this process should be the same all the way up to about 2013 or maybe even longer. Now, some of the V6 models are a little different, but the process is the same. Please do your research. But other than that, we are done here. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. And until my next video, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.